we met at the Frostbite races in the Asheville area back in February. You and Kat, I believe, had just finished the race. You were standing near the finish line.
Right.
I just remember I was the event photographer, and I asked if I could take your photo. Afterwards, you shared some of her accolades, and it was all inspiring. Let's start with that. Tell me what Kat's done as far as running.
She started running back in 1997. Her goal was to run a marathon in all 50 states. She was well on her way when we met in 2000, and we were working at that goal of getting a marathon done in all 50 states. Unfortunately, in 2014, she was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. So we decided to pack up our bags. We love running, we love traveling. We hit the road as nomads. And for 8 years, we just traveled around the world, literally the world, 82 countries. We've run a race in at least 35 countries. And we set out to, at one point, finish her 50 states, which we eventually did. Would hit, but we were still able to find some small races. In October of 2020, she was able to get 22, excuse me. She was able to get states done in Narragansett, Rhode Island. And since that goal was set, I'm a goal setter. So we were also in the midst of trying to get as many half marathons done. And we're, as a matter of fact, April 20th, we'll be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we will run our 50th state. She actually was able to run 43 of the states, but the last 7, I will be pushing her in what I call the Catmobile, and as an adult-sized stroller, and I will push her along the half marathon route in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We also had another goal, which was 10Ks in all 50 states. And I was looking at the map and I said, North Carolina, let's head over there. I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, and I used to work out of Asheville, North Carolina. I knew the area really well, and it was really a pleasure to be there. But I knew that with the hills, that I was not going to be able to push her by myself. Sometimes I do have somebody come with us and help me, but with those hills,
Yeah.
there's no way I was going to make it up there. It was funny because I was thinking, yeah, maybe I could. And then I started off and I hit that first hill. I said, no, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. I would be in oxygen debt the whole way. But it was really cool because you had that 1 mile walk and we walked around for a mile and she still walks probably about 6 miles a day. She
Wow,
gets
that's incredible.
a lot of walking in, so she still loves to do that. Unfortunately, she also suffers from seizures, and that's what took her ability to run away about 2
Okay.
years. So
What do those numbers look like? Total marathons. I know you mentioned all 50 states. I know there's multiple continents. What is that?
she's got 83 marathons. She's run at least a half marathon in all 7 continents. And like I said, she did all 50 states. And she's also an Ironman. She did that in Louisville, Kentucky back in 2011 and has done numerous triathlons along the way.
That's
She
incredible.
also she also is an ultra marathoner. When I turned 50 many moons ago, we set out and we ran the JFK 50 miler. So we did that.
Wow.
We have one of those. So we're Ironman check off, 50 states check off, ultra marathon check off. We don't do a whole lot of things repeater, but we're going to set our new goal to get all 50 states in 10Ks now going around.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. The journey of an endurance runner is always something that's fascinating, but obviously the story of you and Kat really goes above and beyond. Obviously, you received some news that would change the trajectory of your lives and running journeys. But before that, tell me a little bit about how you all met and like how running was a part of that when you and Kat first came together.
It was a running played a major part in our getting together. We were on a 5K race, and I heard her talking about the fact that she wanted to run a marathon in all 50 states. I had never run a marathon at that point. I grew up in New York, and I used to watch the New York City Marathon. And this was about April time frame, and New York is in November. She was talking about she was going to do New York, and I said, "Hey, could you train me to do New York Marathon?" And she's agreed to train me to do that. I expected to do one marathon and be done. I was going to be a one and done type person. However, shortly thereafter, she said, "Hey, I'm going to New Orleans and let's do that. And I'm going to Jackson, Florida, and on and on." And I was like, "Hey, this is fun. I enjoyed being with you and all. And we'll see how where this goes." And I've done 68 marathons, an Ironman, ultra marathon, trying to impress her over the time, but she always seemed to set another goal out there for us to achieve. So that's where,
So so in those early years, she was the one essentially pushing you.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And it was funny because she, as you might not have noticed, but she's a bit shorter than me, and but a lot faster than I was. So she'd be always turning around, "Come on, hurry up, old man, let's go." But she's 6 years younger than me. Also, she had a bundle of energy, and all the races for her were just a joy. She'd stop, take pictures, and pose with folks, and cut up and all that. Whereas I'm chugging along trying to just see if I can make it to the finish line. So it was interesting. The juxtaposition of us now where I have to help her.
About 10 years ago, I believe it was, that all changed with a diagnosis that actually both of you had received that changed everything. Tell me about what that time period looked like and what you were thinking at that with that news.
I was working. I had a couple of choices. I could have kept working or I could have taken an early retirement. My research on early onset Alzheimer's was very limited back then. All I knew was that her father also had vascular dementia, and he passed away 2 years after his diagnosis. As far as I was concerned, we didn't have a whole lot of time. So I thought, oh, let's pack in as many races and destinations as we could. There's no sense in us being on the road and have a house that we're paying for and have a car that we're paying for while we're gone for all this length of time. Because we would take out on trips for 30, 45 days, 60 days at a time. So I decided, okay, let's sell the house, sell the cars. We'll just use hotels, Airbnbs, fly on Delta, rent Hertz cars no matter where we are. And I've started putting together some races, and each race destination would evolve into another race. And then we just moved around the world like that, going from race to race. We used two different companies, Marathon Tours and Travel, you might have heard of out of Massachusetts, and we did 20 some races with them, which is really good because socialization is really important for folks with Alzheimer's. Travel, seeing new and exciting things is also good for them. And of course, the exercise. So we were always exercising and always uh, seeing new things and socializing with the group. It would be 100 of us on a tour. We get to see the city. We go to Berlin. We get to tour around for a couple of days. You would have a welcome reception and an after party and all that. So you have plenty of opportunity to spend time with like-minded individuals. So that worked out really good. We did that. Our schedules were somewhat hectic, trying to make all the airplanes and train trips and buses and all. But I was in management at United Parcel Service, so I liked the logistics of trying to figure out where the best places to go and stay and eat and all that. That was my chore, and her, surprisingly enough, she took it like a champ. She was the only thing she really asked of me was for me not to put her away. That's what they did with her dad. Her dad got somewhat combative, so they had to put him in a nursing home. And I promised her I wasn't going to do that. And we've been doing this as a team effort, moving along. And as her abilities dwindled, then I just picked up the slack. The adult size stroller that I talked about works really well, folds up, goes into a bag. I can travel with it anywhere, and it works out really great. And she enjoys riding in it. And then on some races, like we'll do a half marathon. We did one this last weekend in Macon, Georgia. And she'll get out and she'll walk a mile or so and then get back in, and I'll push her another couple of miles and she'll get out and she'll walk a little bit. It works out really well. She can get her exercise and I get my exercise. And we can also check off another state.
Yeah.
So
And at the beginning of that, when she had received the initial diagnosis, you had received a health hurdle as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was interesting. 2 years prior, was a pilot, a commercial pilot with United Parcel Service, also in management there. I had been there for 27 years. And 2 years prior, I went in for my every 6 months, I had to have a complete physical, and then my doctor told me, he says, "Ah, you got a heart murmur." Normally, they're benign, but in my case, it was the fact that my aortic valve was not closing all the way, and it was letting the blood regurgitate back out, and that's what they heard is the noise of the blood. I monitored it for 2 years. I was still working at United Parcel Service, so I decided to go ahead and have the operation done, which was open heart surgery. I had the aortic valve replaced with a mechanical valve, which will outlive me, and it was a good choice. My matter of fact, my surgeon was a triathlete. He was looking at our schedule. He said, "Oh, you got this race here, you got this race here. Let's go ahead and do this surgery in June." I wanted to go to Berlin in September of that year and got the operation done, came out, it followed all his instructions to the T, and was able to run the Berlin Marathon 3 months after my surgery.
So was that surgery after Kat's diagnosis?
It was just about the same time. It was
Wow.
almost like he got the diagnosis in April, and then I had my surgery in June. And
Right.
but back then, she was still able to do a whole lot of things. She was still able to work and all that drive and all that.
Yeah, that's amazing because obviously heart issue is very significant. And I think that paired with the diagnosis Kat received, I think those are two circumstances in which most people would say our bodies are telling us to slow down or we need to maybe throttle back a little. And it seems like you and Kat did the opposite. Is was did either of those things ever cross your mind? Like, oh, maybe we were both receiving this news and considering it, or it was like, no, let's just full steam ahead, don't look back.
It was full steam ahead, don't look back type of attitude. I looked at the fact that what did we love doing? And we really enjoyed doing the races, doing the different destinations. We enjoyed the travel. So we figured we'd just keep doing that until we had a sign that, for example, if I started running and then I started having chest pains or something like that, or she would start running and she would have trips and falls or something like that. But none of those things happened. We were just having such a blast. It was just the first 8 years were just incredible in terms of the people we met and the destinations we saw, the things we saw. I would never look back to say, "Oh, I wish I had done something different in that case at all."
And you actually wrote a book about that experience. Tell me about
Yes,
that.
yes, I did. I wrote a book called "Running All Over the World: Our Race Against Early Onset Alzheimer's." It takes us through the first 5 years of our travels. And as a matter of fact, I'm working on the second book, which will be coming out in August. And it's called "One Footstep at a Time: Our Race Against Early Onset Alzheimer's Continues." And it takes the second 5 years. And it'll finish up with our race in Wisconsin in April next week, as a matter of fact, which is 10 years from her diagnosis. So that's where we will. And as you can see, I do continue to write to my blog, runningwithcat.com. And I'll continue to do that. But I think for books, I'm done. I had an interesting situation with the books, which was I I listened to a lot of books on audio.
Mhm.
I wanted to have an audio book so that we could listen to our adventures as her memory started to fade. And I said, we got to write a book first. So that's how I went about and wrote the first book. And I do have it on audio. As we travel by car, I'll put it on and she'll sit there and have some remembrance of some of the things that we did. And I've got pictures all over the place. On our TV, I have a fire stick and I show pictures of our travels and all the different destinations. As you can see, there's some pictures behind me that is in the dining area, so she can look
That,
at.
that's incredible that you did that and that she has that to look back on as her memory changes. Is there ever times when she's looking at that and she's just can't believe what you all have done or experienced?
Right now, she's nonverbal. Can express. And as a matter of fact, we were having dinner yesterday, and If she turns to the right, she's looking at those pictures and she was just sitting there just smiling. And I was like, oh, you like that? Oh, yeah. And I started pointing out where we were and she just kept smiling and smiling on those type of things. And yeah, it works out really good. And then you talked about a video that we had, and I play that sometimes on the TV. And as you notice, I narrate most of it. She hears my voice, she looks up at the TV, and she'll see us, running or something that we're doing during that video. So that was
So awesome.
cool.
So running has been, it seems like from the time you met until
Yeah,
up for the foreseeable future, like the
right.
consistent thing through all of the inconsistencies, through diagnosis and surgeries and whatever. Tell me what that looks like. What does running mean to you now compared to like what it did then? Or when you're out there and you lace up your shoes and you just start, is it different or is it like this familiar thing that just feels so good? Tell me about that.
There's double-edged sword, and North Carolina is a good example of that. I was planning out the trip. I was looking at the course map and all, and I planned on pushing her during that race. And then I realized that I just wasn't going to be able to do that, and it really hurt. It took me and just knocked me out. I was like, maybe I shouldn't even go because of the fact that it was going to be the first race that we're not going to be able to run together or be together with. And I saw the 1 miler and I said, okay, maybe psychologically I can work through this, but at least we can walk around, the track and all, and then I can go out and run. I have a lady, I have actually two ladies that travel with us, travel companions. And so she was there and she was there near the finish. So that was really good to come into the finish and have Catherine there waiting for me. Um, now, the other part about it is that I remember vividly when I, you know, finished my operation. I'm walking around and they say, oh, you cannot run for 6 weeks. And it was just killing me. The fact that I could not run for 6 weeks. I would see people run by me and I would just get so frustrated that I couldn't run. And the first day that I was able to run, he was like, looked at my watch, right at 6 weeks. I said, okay, oh, it was bliss. Just the fact that I was able to be airborne. Something different about walking fast and running. You have that 1 nanosecond that you're completely airborne. And it is reminiscent to me flying airplanes, being able to go airborne. Now, the other thing that was really interesting about that race is that he had this short out and back part. And it was this gentleman that was coming back that I was like, oh my God, this guy's got to be in his 80s at least. And he finished up before me. I came up to him and he was probably maybe 5 foot. And I bent down and I said, sir, how old are you? He said, 86 years old. I said, my God, an 86-year-old beat me in a 10K. And I was like, okay. And I told him, I said, you're an inspiration because that's exactly what I want to be doing when I turn your age. And he goes, how? He says, how old are you, young man? I said, 68. He goes, okay, you just keep working at it, keep working at it. So that whole experience, and that's you know that all the time, those whole experiences of the whole race and the people that you see out there, the encouragement that you give folks as they go by you or they go by you, it's just incredible. I love it every single time. And we have right now through September, we have a race, on the schedule where we're going to be and where we're going to do. And here in Atlanta, Georgia, there's a race every weekend, so we'll probably augment that with a short race. Go out for a couple of an hour drive and find a race in a nearby area to do.
Even with the changes in Kat's memory, it seems like the experience of running and being out there is something also that stayed consistent. Even if she doesn't maybe understand it, it seems like there's contentment and joy there.
Oh my goodness, she loves it. We have a on the Catmobile, we have a banner and it has her name on there. And if we put our race number up there, as people are going by, they're saying, "Oh, cat, go cat, go cat," and she's cheering them on. She's participating in that. People giving her high fives. She's giving them high fives. Yes, there is definitely a connection there. And the medal going around her neck at the finish, there's definitely a connection still there of that whole experience. And whether she's running or walking or whatever, just to be able to be amongst the folks that are doing what she's always loved to do. She was a swimmer, really young, a biker. She's had athletics all throughout her life, and her family were very athletic football players, swimmers, track folks. That whole family experience was just going to a competition. That's another thing that I thought that was going to be important to try to hold on to that as opposed to letting that part go and just trying to hunker down, as a lot of folks try to do and say, okay, well, let's see how long this lasts. And so I decided to leave my job, and we just went on the road and enjoyed life and have had a great time.
Yeah, and it seems like I think you had mentioned her father only lived a few years after his diagnosis, and now you guys are still running after 10 years. Do you
Yep.
believe that commitment to staying physically active has had a big part of what you've been able to accomplish and do and see and experience?
Absolutely. This second book, I do a lot of research. I thought this was a good idea, and then I went and did some research and come to find out it was a great idea. They encourage folks to stay active, to stay socially involved. And then also the other thing is try to stay off of the hardcore medications that they give to, for example, she loves to walk. Put her in a setting where she would not be able to walk. They would have to medicate her to try to keep her still. And of course, those
Mm.
medications accelerate the disease progression. So we have the totally opposite. Right now, as I pick this time, I have four different ladies that come in about 20 hours a week to help me. They get here at 9 o'clock, out the door they go, and they're walking around until 1. And then she comes back and we have lunch. And then it's my turn. And then I go out and we walk. We're actually staying in a senior living situation here in Roswell, Georgia. The place is very nice. It has a lot of carpeted corridors that we can walk in, and then it has a beautiful campus where we can walk around. So she has the both when the weather's nice, she's outside, she can you hear the birds chirping and the beautiful flowers and all. And then indoors, we have plenty of places, safe places for us to walk together. So it's a real good setting for us. But it also gives us the opportunity, since we're 30 minutes from the airport, to jump on an airplane and go somewhere or jump in a car and go find a race nearby.
And you were saying she's still walking about 6 miles a day?
That's correct. Yeah, it's funny because some of them in the morning, they'll come and go, oh, we got 3.5 miles done. We got 4 miles done. And then I go back out in the afternoon and I know I'm putting in 2 to 3 miles right up until bedtime almost 9:30. She still wants to walk the whole corridors and then comes in, which is good. So she's worn out. She sleeps really well. And that helps with the disease progression. And we're ready to get up the next day and go at it. So it all works out from my perspective. I think it was the best thing that we could have done. Now, of course, I didn't do a clinical trial and I can't, give you stats on people who do this and do that. It just is just not there. But from all that I have read, that staying active, not necessarily running a marathon in all 50 states or all over the world, but staying active. And then the other thing that I harp on a whole lot when I talk to folks about this is for the partner, myself, for us to do something that we enjoy doing together and being together the majority of the time, as opposed to me going out and playing golf, leaving her here. Maybe she plays bridge with her friends or something like that, as opposed to us always being together so that we can enjoy the time together because we don't know how long it'll be. It could be next year, it could be next month, it could be next week. We're just putting in every day, one foot in front of the other every day.
Yeah. And I know you said you're a very goal-oriented person. That's very evident, I think, just to organize running races in all 50 states, let alone different distances and keeping track of all that. That's amazing. And you're finishing up a big one in Milwaukee this next upcoming weekend, which is amazing. So, with that one kind of crossed off, do you got some other goals that you're imagining now, or what does the future look like as far as running and what you all are just going to keep doing?
We're 10Ks are our next victim. We're going to try to get it all 50 states at 10Ks. We've gotten 15 of them done already, and we'll be in Tennessee in June. Also, I'm a little short on getting a marathon done in all 50 states. I'm 8 states away. And
Okay.
I've decided to go back around and get that done. So in July, I'll be in the Minneapolis, and I'll get that one done. And I'll chomp down on my list. I'm going to take it maybe one or two a year. I'm not going to be able to push her the whole way for a marathon yet, but I'm going to work my way up to the fact that I'll be able to. So my goal is for me to finish my 50th state as a marathon while pushing her uh, during their race so that we can. One of the things we love to do is cross the finish line hand in hand. That's another goal of mine. Yep.
That's amazing. And it's so incredible just to hear the journey, the dedication, the perseverance. I think it's easy to read blog posts and watch YouTube and see, like you said, the holding hands, crossing finish lines, and underestimate all of the work in between those moments.
Right.
Just reading, I think, one of your most recent blog posts, and you were talking about a situation at the airport, not knowing how you were going to get the Catmobile to the rental car, and all of the traveling is probably more complicated than it's ever been. And some of the people that you encounter are probably have the shortest tempers or are the most difficult to
Yeah.
deal with. So, like,
Yeah.
how do you overcome those challenges? I know the races and the running is amazing, but there's just so much in between that. What keeps you going?
There's a lot of logistics part to that, and being in management, that's one of the things that I love to do is try to figure out the puzzle pieces and put them together and try to overcome. Now, the other thing from that story is the fact that everybody that we had met prior to that was very accommodating. The travel industry actually is really good in terms of helping people with disabilities. And my plan is all the way through, we're going to keep traveling, even if I have to carry her on board the airplane. I'm sure there'll be people there to help me to do that. And I've just seen hotels and the travel groups that we've been working with, and the airlines and security. As a matter of fact, we went through TSA about a month ago, and it was the same lady that was there in the month before. She said, "Oh, well, not seeing you as often as we used to." And then we'll be checking in, and the lady will look at us and go, "Oh my goodness, you're both million milers. You're both diamonds. We don't see that much." I said, "Yeah, my motto is don't leave home without her." We were always traveling again. We built up a whole lot of miles, and we built up a whole lot of commitment. And that's what one of the things we did was we always used Marriott hotels. We always use Delta Airlines. We always use Hertz. We keep all those bennies in those three groups so that when it's time to cash in for a rental car or for a hotel or for an air flight, we were able to do that and get upgrades and things like that. Yeah, that challenge at the airport, it was just one of those things that come up. And if I had to go park the car and go drag her back around and all, I would have done it, but it just didn't seem like there was something I needed to do. So I just, as soon as he walked away, I just ran in and got it.
Just make it work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you just tell me about between the races and the travel, and I'm sure there's lots of doctor's visits. Tell me about one experience that you can look back on and just it brings you a lot of joy, whether it's a finish line or encouragement, just something that really hit you and has reaffirmed what you're doing and the approach you're taking here.
I talked about the gentleman that I met at your race, and I wrote about that. That really set the tone for me because all during my racing, I was just thinking, I want to be that old guy just shuffling around. And it matched up with another situation, which was many years ago, not many years ago, about 15 years ago. My daughter was running marathons. She ran 2 marathons with me at the age of 17. So we were running our first marathon, and she was mile 18, 19. Now, this is not going to work, Dad. She's crying, and I know how much this meant to you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, fine. We'll catch a ride to the finish. No big deal. This older gentleman comes shuffling by. It was like the water stop, and he doesn't even stop for the water. He just shuffles right on by. And she looks at him. She goes, "Oh hell no! There's no way I'm gonna let this old guy beat me." And I was like, "Oh, this is great." And we were walking and running and walking and running, and we finally caught up with the guy. And I told him, I said, "The only reason why my daughter is actually going to finish this race is because you went by us." And he goes, "Oh man, that made my day, just knowing that I was able to inspire somebody to keep going." So you have those type of stories that you run across. And then another story was we were in Athens, Greece. It was the 25th, 100th running of the Athens Marathon. Philippides back in 490 BC, he started out this whole distance, marathon distance, and then everybody got together 2,500 years later in Athens, Greece, and we ran that race, and it was every single country was represented. Everybody was dressed up. It was a big party before, big party after, and we were slowing down. We were usually doing 4.5 hour marathons, 4:15, somewhere in there. And this one was, we were going to come in right about 5 hours. And I told Catherine, I said, we're going to have to pick it up because we're going to be a 5 hour plus. And she looked at me, she said, no way am I going over 5 hours. And she picked it up, and I was like thinking to myself, I wish I had not said that because I'm having a hard time trying to keep up with her. So we crossed the finish line hand in hand as always. And I have a picture somewhere in storage of a picture of us crossing the finish line. It's 4:59 overhead, and we're holding hands, and she's completely airborne. But the way it looks is like I'm dragging her along as a rag doll across the finish line. But we finished up in the Coliseum. So it was a momentous occasion for us being there. That was our first international trip. And that's one of the reasons that slowed down her getting her 50 states was the fact that we started doing international trips. We're like, oh, let's go to Paris, let's go to London, let's go to Berlin, let's go to Stockholm, just on and on. And I was like, oh, I love it, I love it, I love it. So that's we put the United States of America on a back burner. And then when we realized that it was going to get close in terms of her disease progression and her ability to run, I started concentrating on trying to get those 50 states done and got them finished up.
Wow, those are some incredible stories. It's crazy to think about something like the one you were talking about in Greece, that running has been essentially something that humans have been doing for centuries because it
Right,
works. It does something in us that maybe we don't understand.
right.
And we, with all of the technology and tools and vehicles that we have, that we keep coming back to it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I've got just a couple more questions. I think
Okay.
it's amazing to me the amount of knowledge that you have and the insights that you have, but you take that a step further and you like apply them and actually do them in real life, and that's wisdom, right? That's wisdom, is taking knowledge a step further. And like these last couple questions, I just want to tap into that. I think that you have
Okay.
some very wise advice, especially for people that are in different places or spots in life. I guess the first one would be someone who says, you know what, I hate traveling and I don't run unless somebody's chasing me. What would your advice be to them as far as how they're living their life?
It's interesting because I told when I first met Catherine and we're talking about we are doing a 5K, and I was like, okay, fine. But she was talking about the marathons. I said, there's the only way I would run a marathon is a bear was chasing me the whole distance. There was just no, the concept just did not compute for it. But what I come to find out is that you're taking your body and also more importantly your mind to a place where you're constantly updating where you are, how you're doing, monitoring your body, monitoring your mind, and trying to overcome that request to stop. Just cut this out. Don't do this anymore. And you're saying, no, I signed up for this race. I'm going to finish this race and I'm going to get it done. And the other part is, and I've talked to a number of folks, and I got some good friends that one is a lot faster than the other. One goes out and trains 8 o'clock in the morning and does their 6 minute pace, and the other one goes out at 10 o'clock and they do their 10-minute pace. They don't experience the same thing as them doing it together. yes, the one that's running faster has to go a little bit slower, and the one's going slower might have to go a little bit faster. But that whole experience of doing it together, the turning to your partner that you love and being able to experience, oh, look at that flower, or look at that kid, or look at whatever, and experience it at the same time is something that I tell folks all the time. If you can, try to figure out a way to train together and try to figure out a way to run a race together, and you'll realize that you've been missing out on a whole lot of the experience of running races and training that you could benefit from by doing it with your partner. And it's just something about coming in after the race and coming in after the training run and having a meal together and discussing what you saw, as opposed to, oh man, you're telling your one story, that person has no idea. And you're telling her the other story that they have no idea because they weren't there. So I encourage folks that run to try their best to do it together. At least maybe he goes out and does his track retreats or something like that, or do a long run. So one of the things I encourage folks to do. And I ride
Yeah,
a
and
bike.
that's interesting too, because I think a lot of the sometimes the at least the culture that you see maybe online or on social media around racing is all about PRs or
Right,
performance or things of that nature, the competitive nature, where maybe some of the best results for you personally and you emotionally is participating in a race, but it's like we always say finish lines rather than finish times because
right,
it's the fact that you did it or you did it
right,
with a partner or with a
right,
friend and
right.
it's a more notable experience than maybe just taking a jog around the park on a Friday afternoon.
Yep. I tell folks all the time, they say, oh, I don't like to run. I don't do this. I say, okay, do this for me. Go find a charitable run, cancer, leukemia, whatever, and say to yourself, I'm just going to walk it. Okay, you're gonna go walk it. You're gonna walk the 5K. Okay. And you look, and then look around. Look at the people. Some people might have missing a leg. Some people might have that they're in remission from cancer. Some people might not have any hair. Some people might be have crutches. Or I ran into one guy in a traditional wheelchair, and as you're out there, you just look around and say, wait a second, this person can do this. Why can't I do this? What's holding me back from doing the same thing that they are? And then as the race will go on, maybe jog a little bit and see how it works out. And then as you move on, just try to do a little bit more, a little bit faster, a little bit longer, and see how it works. But a lot of times what you'll see is while you're out there, there'll be somebody go by you that you'll go, oh no way. And they'll urge you on to keep up the pace. Yeah. It's
Okay.
out there.
And for somebody who's maybe just at the very beginning of a challenging journey or diagnosis, that they've just received that news, what's your advice to them?
One of the statements I've always made about Alzheimer's is that it's not a death sentence, it's a life lesson. And one of the things that I've learned is that even with cancer or any other ailment that doesn't kill you right away, there's going to be a period of time between the time that you get the diagnosis to the time you pass away. The other thing is we're all going to pass away. But it's not, it's just the time horizon as opposed to the fact. The fact is that that's what's going to happen to all of us. So what do we do with that time horizon? And that's what I try to do is try to fill the time horizon with as much joyful situations as possible. Try to find those gems of joy that you see out there and you think about. Now, for us, it's running. It could be like botanical gardens. I really like going to museums. I really like going to the opera or whatever. And then pick those things that you really like to do, and hopefully you'll have some friends or a partner that wants to do it with you and that you can experience together. So those are the kind of way I look at it and what I advise others to do.
And it seems like the goal oriented side of you also keeps that driving because it could be real easy to say traveling is just getting to be too much or the opera tickets are too expensive.
Right,
But then when you have those goals, if it's to
right.
see an opera in all 50 states, you essentially have a little bit of accountability to keep checking things off. And if you were to just stop, then you would also stop those experiences like you were talking about. Maybe even just at you even said at Frostbite, I know that is a very hilly and challenging course. I have not run it, but I've photographed the race, and
Uh-huh.
even pedaling up the hills, I'm like, these people are crazy.
Yeah,
But it was, you even mentioned maybe throwing the towel in on that race,
right,
but then you didn't, and then you
right.
had that experience with
Yes,
the gentleman who was older than you,
right.
and
Made it
that's
made it
something that
all worthwhile. Yeah, it really did. And I look at those situations and I say to myself, yeah, let's keep trying to find another goal because then that will keep you going and moving in the right direction. And you never know what you'll experience if you actually get there and do it. And in all the races, every single race, I can name something that I saw that I was like, wow, I'm really glad that this happened and that I was there to witness it. We had one race where we finished up, and the announcer said, "Okay, every couple finishing together has to give their partner a big hug and kiss." And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool," because that's what he was doing with everybody that was coming in together, and it was just a real good, cool thing to say to everybody. And I thought that was really nice that they came up with that in Las Vegas. People were getting on their knees at the finish and asking someone to marry them. And then also they had a run through chaplain. You can run through and get married. Oh, all these things that folks come up with on these races
yeah,
is just
only
incredible.
in Vegas.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. So, the last question I have, you're so gracious with your time and with your story, whether it be a blog or a podcast or a video, you're out there telling it over and over again. And people are listening. I think clearly, like, just within your own family, I know you've got kids and I believe grandkids,
Mhm.
and they're looking at this. There's people that are going through challenges in their own life, reading your books, listening to your stuff. And if people could just walk away with one thing, one thought, what would you want that to be?
I'm closing on my second book, and it's something that I tell people all the time, which is I aspire to inspire till I expire. And if everybody can hold on to that thought as they go through life and they think about that, that's something that they're going to do for someone else for the rest of their life. Now, the way that the quote actually starts out is this is talking about find something that you do for someone once in your life. And I'm looking at it as this is something that I want to do for as many people as I can for the rest of my life. So when I get phone calls or emails from folks like yourself, I realize that I have an opportunity to do what I just said. There might be somebody that's going to read your story or hear from you about this and say, maybe I should try to do this, or I should think about this a little bit differently. And if everybody goes out and tries to inspire someone else, it would be a much better world. So that's how I look at it. That's what I like to leave with everybody.